All right, welcome back in to another edition as Andy eats his salad here on a one-off Wednesday on the Six Rings podcast for WEEI and for Odyssey Sports. That is Andy Jumbo Hart with some lettuce in his mouth. I am Mike Kadlick, and we're going to take another one of these one-off topics on this Wednesday live here across the WEEI socials on YouTube. And we're going to use something that Jerod Mayo some info Jerod gave us on Monday at his coach's breakfast press conference, where Mike Reese from ESPN asked him any changes that the team may see, because when they were when things were going on with Bill Parcells, they changed uniforms and they kind of changed things up around the team. And Reese was curious if there was anything going on here. And basically what Mayo said was, we're going to wear captain's patches on our uniforms. That's something that the NFL implemented across the entire league in 2007. And the Patriots have not taken part in that. We talked about it a little bit. I forget if we did. I think we talked about it on here, actually, whether it's like a bigger than the team thing. You're not supposed to be bigger than the team, so you don't wear the patch. But really, you should wear the patch because you're you're supposed to be looked at as a leader. So we're going to get into all that today. And we're also going to discuss, Andy, who we think the Patriots captains will be in 2024 and who will don those patches, because last year we had 6 captains, 2 of which are no longer on the team, 4 of which still remain. The 2 that are gone are obviously Mac Jones and Matthew Slater, and the 4 that remain are David Andrews, Hunter Henry, Dietrich Wise, and Jawan Bentley. So before we get into who we think will actually be the captains, Andy, what do you make, if we haven't already rehashed it on the pod and I forget, but if we have, let's do it again. What do you make of the Patriots bringing back the captain's patch, or actually starting with the captain's patch in 2024?
Well, first I'll answer Pete the Animal Austin. Where's Fitzy? Who gives a crap? I don't. So yeah, let's start with like
Fitzy will be here eventually. We had Fitzy the last 2 days. Let's get some Andy in here.
Too much Fitzy. Boy, do I know that world. Too much Fitzy. Nights, weekends, post-game shows, podcasts. Too much Fitzy. So let's start with like a general discussion, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Before we delve into like guys and names and reasons and why and that whole thing. I like that they're going patches. I think you should. Like when you were talking, I was thinking about Eric Cartman, my favorite character in the history of all characters, on his big wheel. You will respect my authority. Well, I don't know if you have any authority. Are you a captain or are you not a captain? Kind of thing. Right. Like it'd be similar if cops didn't wear uniforms and badges and have marked cars. Like, is this dude behind me flashing his lights telling me to pull over?
It's like a citizen's arrest. Like, am I even supposed to listen to you right now? Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I like the idea. I also think they deserve, they have more responsibility. Like in most teams, there's, captains, media captains, whatever. Like, what the hell does that say?
Yeah, I think we're losing you a little bit on the connection.
Me?
Yeah, I think so.
On here?
Can you hear me? You sound better now.
Okay, that's weird.
That's okay.
Damn kids. My kids updated the laptop last night. The mother, I think they screwed something. The whole background was different. But yeah, like if you expect them to do take a position of more authority, they should get like a positive with it, right? Like show the world that these are our leaders. These are and I'm a big believer, just because you don't need a C on your chest to be a leader, but you've picked this group of 6 or 8 guys, whatever it's going to be. So let the world know. And the NFL believes in it, because they not only have the captain's patches, they have the stars to let you know he's a he's been a captain every year, 1 year, first year, second year. So I like it. It doesn't mean I think Bill Belichick's an a-hole because he didn't want to put it there. I mean, I don't.
Right.
I'm not like piling on that. He had a belief in a certain way, and it's fine. I wouldn't do it that way. I think we did talk about this, and I told you, even in high schools, I don't think they put enough emphasis on captains and who like in my day, I felt like the local newspaper, there'd be like photo shoots and all the captains for the fall would be in like the town newspaper. Like, this is the football captains. This is the base. Like, you should do that. They've earned it. That's another question. How do you get captaincy? Let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
How do you become a captain? Is it team vote? Is it coach pick? Is it a blending of the two? Because I know around here, I think they probably did farcical votes, and Bill then put who he wanted as captains.
So at least in my brief history of, playing sports in high school and college, I know it's different than the pros, but my thought was always exactly that. The team votes, the coach looks at it and decides if the votes are accurate or not for what he wants to do.
Right.
And so I'm sure that, for example, the Patriots last year, like, I'm sure Mac Jones got a ton of votes if they voted because he is the quarterback and because at the time he was a leader of the offense. Then people really felt bad for him about what happened the year before. And they thought, well, let's stand behind this guy. Let's see what he can do. He's still a leader on the team. And then I'm sure Bill saw it and was like, well, I don't want to make Mac Jones a captain. But he also knows that, well, if 95% of the team voted for Mac Jones, then I have to do it. So, like, you put in Mac that way. Or, like, you know, a guy like Dietrich Wise. And I'm not saying he's not going to earn votes, but that's a guy who, like, I think Bill, regardless if he got the votes or not, would have made a captain. And so I think that's kind of how it goes basically everywhere is, you know, you vote as a team. Maybe you pull the coaches as well. And then obviously the head coach has, you know, the authority on who to name it. And I'm looking at the chat too, Pete Austin, who is ripping up the chat. We appreciate it, Pete. Anyone else who has any comments, questions about what's going on here, feel free to use the chat and we'll bring up your things. He says, are they going to have A's and C's like in hockey with assistant captains and captains? No, they are not. That is not an NFL thing. But what they do, which I find interesting, and I was going to read off, and this is from Pat's Pulpit, Byrne from Pat's Pulpit, who runs the SB Nation blog over there. Basically, what they do is, you mentioned the stars, Andy. They have 4 stars underneath, and if you've been a captain for X amount of years, your star turns gold, and then if you exceed the 4, then your entire thing turns gold. So, like David Andrews, he'll have 4 gold stars and a golden C because he's an 8-year captain. Jawan Bentley will have 4 stars, but the C won't be white, or the C will be white because he's a 4-year captain. Dietrich Wise will have 3. Hunter Henry will have 2. Again, if those 4 end up being voted captain again. So that's kind of how they do it. It's not necessarily an A or C. There's just captains, and that's kind of how that is. But now, looping back to how they vote for captains, how do you think they should be voted for captains? Or how do you think they should vote for captains?
I think the way you described it is actually okay. Like, I think it's a little bit like our government, like the Senate, the Congress, they do their thing, and then the president can veto it or sign it into law kind of thing. Because sometimes it is a popularity contest. And, like, just because you're popular in the locker room doesn't necessarily mean you should be a candidate to be captain or be a leader of the team. Or, you know, players should, you know, could have off-field issues. And everybody may love, I'm going to use this example, and I don't mean to throw mud on the guy, but like Duron Harmon was about as well respected as you could have. And then he had that little incident where he brought marijuana on vacation with him or something, got caught at like a customs, whatever. Like, if you have ongoing legal issues, I'm not sure you really want that guy to be a captain. Maybe you do. Maybe you say, no, we're standing by our guy, whatever. But I just, sometimes I think there needs to be coaching level or even organizational level decisions. Like, maybe this is not the year for that guy to be a captain for us.
What do you make? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do you got?
No, I was just going to say, then it's sort of along the same topic. What do you make of the quarterback then almost automatically being a captain? And like the, I guess, you know, people look at quarterbacks who aren't captains and think, you know, whether they're a poor leader or whether they basically they're not good enough because they're not a captain. And like, do you think rookies should be captains? Do you think you need to be a second year? Should they automatic? Like, what do you make of that?
Okay, so there's a lot of layers to that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, first of all, there's like the position thing, like the quarterback's a captain, like just because. Well, why? If the quarterback's a dink and wasn't here for OTAs and like isn't seemingly fully invested in the team, I don't care if I don't want him a captain.
But do you even want that as your quarterback then?
Well, yeah, but maybe I'm stuck with him. I don't know.
I get that too, but I guess what I'm saying is that should be not a prerequisite, but like, if your quarterback's not a captain, then you should probably be looking for a different quarterback.
I 100% agree with that. Okay. Now, do you think that covers other positions? Like, I think traditionally middle linebacker is a captain. And would you say the same thing? Like, if you have a middle linebacker, I think
it's a little different. I think quarterback is different.
Safety, your best safety.
No, I think defense. I think it doesn't really matter on defense. Obviously, you need defensive captains.
Typical effing QB.
I'm a former QB.
No, but the quarterback is like they're like the CEO of the entire team. It's head coach, quarterback, GM. Like, it is. Am I wrong? Is that
wrong? But I don't. I'm not going to accept it as like,
you don't want to accept it because it's from me.
No, I think the middle linebacker also needs to be in that world, and maybe the safety or one of the two in my mind.
Okay, I agree with that. Someone down the middle of the defense that doesn't have their hand in the dirt needs to be
the guys that are making all the calls that are like, I think one of those. And again, if you don't have one, that's probably saying you need to upgrade those positions if you're not like 100%. Thinking they're captains.
Whoever calls your plays on defense, I guess that's a good way to put it. Who the play caller is, who everybody looks towards every play, you would think should be, should have enough off-field and even on-field respect to be a captain of your team.
Rookies should not be captains, said Pete Austin again. I mostly agree with that. I don't want to have rules, first of all. I don't know that there should be rules. Like, if we're a young team in a transitional phase and I draft a quarterback number 3 overall, and on April 26th, he arrives in the building. Wow, this sounds all very specific. He arrives in the building, and immediately there's just an air about him and the work ethic. Like, I wouldn't say, no, you can't be a captain. I would say
100%. I agree.
I expect you to be special. And by me making you a captain, yes, I'm putting a little more focus on you or more on your plate. I'm saying, no, I think we have our guy. Like, we're putting that on your plate right out the gates.
Right.
Now, I say right out the gates. You don't name the captain until August. We don't see the patch until September. But in that span, May, June, July, August, I have realized, I mean, Belichick,
starting in May. Huh?
Yes, may be a captain. But like Belichick always goes back to, among the rookies, Tom Brady was the leader. It wasn't even close. Like that year, rookie mini camp, everything, it was Brady's crew.
Kevin O'Connell at the NFC coaches breakfast spoke with Mike Reese saying the same thing about Jerod Mayo. They were in the same rookie class with the Patriots. And he was like, he was our leader. No doubt about it. Jerod was the leader of the rookies that camp. And so it's interesting that you say that about Brady because he's the head coach here now.
And Jerod Mayo was a second-year captain. Devin McCourty was a second-year captain. Like, these were guys that I think it was quite obvious quite quickly who they were, what they were about in New England. Now, those two guys, great leaders, had to wait a year. If they were quarterbacks, I don't know. I also think, like, the quarterback situation matters. Like, who's ahead? Like, the weird one this year, and as we start to delve into options, Jacoby Brissett is a weird one. Like, he's the quarterback. Do you want to empower him by making him a captain and saying whether he starts or not, this dude is a leader among the offense, this dude is a leader in our locker room? That's an interesting one. Okay, let me step back for a minute.
Sure.
So we've talked about kind of the idea. I kind of like these, by the way, these one-offs. Like, what's a good owner? What's a good captain?
Good stuff.
Because these are topics that you're not going to necessarily get into on a weekly podcast, couple time a week, radio hit. Like, these are like different.
That's why we're here, Andy. That's why we have the Six Rings community to build stuff like this.
Absolutely. And I
think if you have any one-off Wednesday suggestions, tweet us at them.
That's a good idea. We should do requests. For a specific episode. Tweet them at us. What is a captain? Like, what is a good captain? And I've always said, there's a million, I think it's like porn, when you see it, or like there's different, there's a reason that there's 100 flavors of ice cream kind of thing. But I personally believe a captain has to be willing to be an a-hole sometimes. He has to be willing to be authoritative, maybe at the cost of his friendship or like happy-go-lucky, getting along with the guys kind of nature. Like, I always go back to Willie McGinnis could scare the living crap out of anybody.
Yeah,
I think you need that. I think a captain has to be a hardo to some degree. I don't think you can be the nicest guy on the roster, which, I mean, we may have some, like, I would question Dietrich Wise. I don't know what he is behind the scenes. Sure. On the outside, he kind of seems like he might be too nice to be a captain. Matthew Slater probably has a little, is he too nice to be a captain? Now, he was a unique.
But I think he garnered enough respect because he'd been around for so long. So whatever he says, you're going to listen. And he was so much older that I don't think he had a problem speaking up.
And it's a little different. We talked about quarterback. I also think most teams, I haven't really done a sampling survey. I think most teams, that leader on special teams is a captain. Like, he is the head of that kicking game, third phase, like Larry Izzo and those guys. Because sometimes they're almost borderline coaches. They put together extra film sessions. They put together group whatever with that unit. So I feel like there's sometimes, but I would start with that. Like, do you have to be a great player? Did you ask me that?
I didn't, but do you?
Do you have to be a starting caliber player?
I don't think so. I really don't think so, because I look at the Jacoby Brissett example, and yeah, he may start the season as he may start the season as the starter, but like, is he really like the best player on offense? He knows everybody on the offensive side of the ball knows the reason, including himself, knows the reason Jacoby Brissett is on the Patriots roster, and it's to help bring that rookie quarterback along. But if he acts as a leader and people look towards him, and he can, again, garner that respect on the offensive side of the football, then he deserves to be a captain, even if he's going to be a backup in 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. Like, I'm fine with that. And even if he's not starting, he can still be a leader on the offense, because you're not necessarily expecting Drake May, Jaden Daniels to be that leader just yet on the unit.
I kind of agree with DJ Daniel. Captain in the NFL doesn't mean anything because there are way too many. There should be one for offense, one for defense, one for special teams, and that's it. And also, in the old days, captains were the voice on the field. They were the only person that was allowed to talk to the official and accept a penalty. And like, they don't even do that anymore. Like, they look to the sideline and the coach yells what he wants. And even in like high school, like the captain is not the voice of the team with the officiating crew.
No, all they do is do the coin toss, really.
Right. So I kind of agree with that on some level. Like, there are kind of a lot of them, but I think some of that is based on the way coaches did it. A lot of them had, what do they call them? Like leadership councils.
Yeah.
And now those have sort of evolved into your captains because coaches were doing it. And I think people were like, well, if you're going to have a leadership council, let's make those your captains, call them captains. So I think there's a little bit of an evolution there. In some sports, no, not in the NFL. I know, yeah. Some teams still do the like weekly captains, and you're a captain for this game week. And there can be varying reasons. It can be a practice squad call up. It can be they're playing your former team. It can be, so, there are different theories and ways that coaches.
Yeah, remember Jair Alexander did it this year for the Packers, and he got he wasn't supposed to be out there or something.
Supposed to be, yeah. He went out there and then he screwed up the coin toss and the whole thing. I prefer a group of captains, not week to week. I prefer
I agree.
Your 4, your 6, however many you want it to be.
I was going to say, I think it's okay that there's more than one on each unit, though. Like, I think you should look towards multiple people, especially if there's a lineman, a skill position player, stuff like that.
Yeah, like, don't tell me, only one of Jerod Mayo and Devin McCourty can be a captain. Like, they're both captains. We both know they're captains, so make them. Now, the other question, and we're getting a good discussion on this. I kind of like this. If you're a captain, are you a rollover captain? Like,
no. Ah, man.
Like, because in a way, like, if you strip a captaincy, it's like what he did.
But that's happened before here, hasn't it? Haven't they been stripped and then brought back? Like, didn't Jawan Bentley skip a year or something?
Somebody did. It might have been Bentley
or Wise. Absolutely. It might have been Wise. One of those guys.
Like, and does that see? This is where we get into the coaches part.
Yeah,
because I think they jerk people around sometimes based on like contracts or like, oh, you don't want to re-sign with us, you're not a captain. I think they utilize some of those things in the past.
I have Matthew Judon on my list of maybes, and I wonder if his contract situation goes into that at all.
Right, because he's, vocal. He does a lot of the at least external jobs of a captain in terms of leadership, talking to the media, those types of things. Like, best player, easily.
Yeah. Best player on the team. He's yet to be one yet, though. Like, he wasn't last year. I didn't expect him to be in his first. This is his 4th year, his first, maybe even his 2nd year. But he wasn't a captain in his 3rd year either, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Because he had a hold in or a holdout would be my guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think
so. Then let's get into it. Do you want to get into who we think they're going to be the captains this year?
Wait, one more. Can I tell a quick story?
Of course you can.
To tell me I'm not qualified to do what we're about to do.
Sure.
So a few years ago, I think it was 2021. If that marries up, it might not. I don't know. They announced captains, and Landon Roberts was one of them. And I believe on Twitter, I may have like questioned it, like, "Oh, that's interesting. Didn't expect Landon Roberts to be a captain, or didn't see him as a captain." Thought nothing of it. in December, when they clinched the playoffs or the division or something, I'm in the locker room and he yells over, hey, orange shirt. Hey, come here. You the one who said I shouldn't be a captain? And I'm like, what? No. He's like, yeah, I think you put it on like any. I had no, you know me. There's no chance 3 months later or whatever.
You remember the tweet, yeah,
that I tweeted. Who knows what? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, and this is why I don't think you're a captain, because if you've been holding this in your head against some meaningless effing reporter for 3 months, like,
yeah,
you should have bigger fish to fry. You're a baby. You're oversensitive, whether you run through an MFer's face or not. You were an overrated fullback. But
well, I was going to say at that time too, like, Landon Roberts has grown into a much better football player with Miami and with Pittsburgh than he was here. He was more of a role player on defense. He played some offense, like you said. So at that point, I feel like that was okay to question that. And again, we didn't know what was going on inside the locker room as far as leadership goes, but
right. And I think that, like, trying to put myself back into my mental state of why I tweet, I think that was my mentality. Like, wow, this guy's like a borderline player at linebacker, kind of. He's certainly not your entrenched middle linebacker like we were talking about earlier. And he's entrenched at middle linebacker. He's a starter. So he's
not going to have a green dot because he's barely on the field.
Right. So that was a weird one to me. And then I do think maybe he evolved into more of a vocal leader when they made him a captain, and he brought a certain energy and the run through him MFer and like style. But that was an example of one where I kind of, because usually these are kind of predictable. I feel like you can go 85, 90% if you try to predict captains year to year, just based on who's on the roster, experience, past captains, the whole thing. So let's get into it. So if we're going to draft them, my first pick would be David Andrews.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Let's go offense and defense. I guess we'll draft and think about it on each unit who should be the the top choice at captain. So I agree. David Andrews. Go ahead. You're gonna.
So you can have 8, right? Is that the limit?
I don't know.
I thought you did the research. You were reading like 2007, and you had all the patch things. And
no, I don't know how many you can have. I just knew that he's been a captain for 8 seasons.
I think I know there's a limit.
Okay.
I'm like 99%. Like, you couldn't put 53 captains out there. Like,
imagine 53 patches. Well, that Colts uniform, as you look it up, that Colts uniform, their alternate one has the C for Colts with the state of Indiana in it. Have you seen this before?
No.
And it looks like everybody's a captain because they put like a patch on their chest, and it's like, it's just, I don't understand. Some of these new uniforms, the designers don't know what the hell they're doing. But
they're only allowed to have 6.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Although,
and they maxed it out last year.
To be forced. Some claim that they don't really enforce it.
Okay.
Yeah, not strictly enforced. 4 teams named 7 captains at the beginning of the year in 2019. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you're supposed to have 6.
Okay. Well, then let's do 6. We'll go by the league rules, and we'll figure out what 6 we think should be the captains. And number 1 is
should be an odd number, because I think you should say most teams are going to have a special teams captain, so you should be then able to, if you want to, balance out offense and defense. So it should either be 5, 7, 9.
But we'll do 3 and 3 offense, defense, and then a 7th for special teams.
Ooh, DJ Daniel agrees with me. First pick Andrews.
Okay. He also says we are all captains. I like that. Gen Z would definitely do we're all captains. I am Gen Z, and we are all captains. So let's do offense. David Andrews.
Everybody gets a captain.
Just like the Colts. 8-year captain, leader on the team. I don't really think you need to, we don't need to really sit here and make a case for David Andrews. I think that's automatic.
Well, the flip side is true. If the captains come out and he's not one of them, I'm like, the hell's going on in this?
Yeah, exactly. So David Andrews is David Andrews. The other one who was a captain last year and remains on the offense is Hunter Henry. Now, Hunter Henry returns to the team, takes a little bit of a pay cut, I think. Probably could have garnered some more on the open market, but he returns. Is Hunter Henry going to be a captain next year? You think he continues to lead the offense?
Yeah. If he wasn't already a captain, I think we could have a good discussion, but I think that puts him over the top. I mean, we're talking about an offense that lacks premier talent, premier established guys. David Andrews is an obvious one, and Hunter Henry as arguably your most consistent playmaker on offense for the last couple years. I think he's done a fine job. I don't know about you, just in terms of the media and the press conferences and tone and different things. We're fortunate on WEEI. He's one of generally the midday guests. And I think he sometimes does the Matthew Slater where respectfully answers tough questions, difficult, and sometimes gives you insight into stuff's happening. And yes, not ideal, kind of like he's not just everything is awesome mouthpiece of the team. So yeah, I would say Hunter Henry, especially if we're going to include contracts, he came back on a team friendly deal. So here's a little something for the effort. It's a C. It's not a C note. It's just a C on your shirt.
Yeah, right. So that's 2, Andrews and Henry, and we have room for one more, Andy, if we're going to go by our parameters here. And the names I wrote down for the 3rd spot were Kendrick Bourne, Ramondre Stevenson, and Jacoby Brissett. And I don't know who will be picked. Obviously, we'll see what happens. But I know, and we talked about it before the show, that Kendrick Bourne has been lobbying to become a captain of the Patriots. He told the Boston Herald's Andrew Callahan in an interview a few weeks ago that he wants to be a captain of this team. That's one of the reasons he came back. He wants to be a part of this rebuild. He also has all the wide receivers out in Oregon with him working out. He was with, as you know, we saw on social media with Demario Douglas and Tyquan Thornton, and even Bailey Zappi were out in Portland with him getting some work done. So he's trying to build some camaraderie, at least in the wide receivers room. But it's a lot easier said than done, right? If you're sitting here saying, I want to be a captain, at some point it's also, well, just put your head down and work and earn it. And I'm not saying he's not, but I wonder where that goes. And then Stevenson's been around, could be going into a contract year. And then we talked about it already with Jacoby Brissett as the de facto starting quarterback right now.
So I had a rule in my youth coaching days. If you, as a child, asked to play a position, it guaranteed you would not play that position that day. Mm-hmm. So enacting that rule for Kendrick Bourne, if you're going to lobby to be a captain, you just guaranteed you're not a captain on my football team, because I don't think captains lobby to be captains. I think that's some lame crap. Because otherwise, I'd be considering him for captain. I love the energy he brings.
Yeah.
I love the effort, the work ethic. Playmaking, I think, is a legitimate part of it. Coming back probably sooner rather than later from an injury. Like, there's all aspects, re-signing, maybe being their best receiver. There's plenty of reasons for me to include Kendrick Bourne on my potential list of captains, but he just asked to be a captain, so I crossed him off. Maybe next year.
Yeah, see, I get the premise, and it does feel like that little kid's thing. Like, I want to play first base. Well, have fun in left field, kid. Yeah, right.
No, you can't pitch, bitch.
Right. And so, and I get it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, he is coming back from an injury. He is working hard. He does have respect in the room. He's just a fun, really happy-go-lucky player, and a guy who people look towards. So him saying, look, he didn't come out and say it with Andrew. He was asked about his goals, and he said, well, I'd like to be a captain of the team. And then ever since it started to gain some traction, he's been like, yeah, this is a goal of mine. And I think that's fine. You put goals out there, you have goals. And I know you're not a fan of the promote on social media crowd, but so since you have Kendrick Bourne,
shaking people down. He's trying to get people to buy his merch too. It's a shakedown of Patriot Nation. I hate it.
We're going to get you a Born Blessed t-shirt, and you're going to wear it on the podcast.
I like him. So I like him a lot. That's what makes me like, oh, I love him. He's my favorite receiver. He's one of my favorite players on the team. I love his smile. I love his energy, the whole thing. I do. Okay. I love people that love football, but stop shaking down Patriot Nation to buy you damn merch and stop asking to be a captain.
All right, so then he's not a captain in your book. Who is the third captain of the Patriots offense then?
So Stevenson is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
He is in a contract year. They would like to re-sign him. I don't know if that plays into it, like, oh, we'll make you a captain, but if we're gonna commit to you in that way, we'd like a little something committed to us. I don't know. Another candidate I would throw out there is Mike Onwenu, who has re-signed.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yep.
Who is we talked about this in free agency. I don't think there's a black mark against him. I don't think there's a reason he couldn't be. He works hard. He's versatile, plays different positions. He's re-signed. He's good. I mean, their offensive line may be the foundation of their offense. If because people are like, oh, you're gonna have two captains on the offensive line. Well, if you looked at our skill players, we don't have a lot of candidates to choose from.
Right.
And it just is what it is. So I would. So Brissett, he's a quarterback.
Yep.
You might need some stability in that room. Although the QB1, according to videos on the internet, is Bailey Zappi. You didn't mention him. I've seen videos, people yelling QB1 when he stands up.
I'm sorry.
So basically Stevenson, Brissett, and Onwenu might be your offensive other cap. And there's no rule, by the way. It could just be Hunter Henry and David Andrews. Like, you don't have to. So I think.
So here's the one out, or go ahead first.
I was just going to say, from that group, I think I would vote for Onwenu.
Okay. I'm going to give my vote to Kendrick Bourne. However, what I will say too is something we touched on a little bit earlier, and that is, if Drake May or Jaden Daniels comes in here the day they're drafted and works hard and wins the QB1 job and is in early and out late and immediately garners respect from his offensive teammates and is seen as a leader and a guy who isn't just in a backseat role. And frankly, even if he's not QB1 week one, that probably wouldn't work. So I shouldn't say that. It probably wouldn't work that way. You're not going to make him a captain and keep him on the bench. But so let's go with the original plan. If he does win the job and he does come in here and he kicks ass and he works hard and he goes out of the way in the preseason and is vocal leader and he people respect him and he's not an asshole.
Hey.
You said bitch earlier.
Yeah, but that's a much worse word than bitch.
Okay, a jerk. I don't know. What do you want from me? Anyway,
I say bitch on TV. I can't say that word.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But we're on a podcast, so we're marked as explicit, so we're fine. Anyway, if he comes in here and he isn't a jerk and he garners the respect and all that good stuff, then I'm completely okay with making your rookie quarterback a captain week one.
I don't love rookie quarterbacks as captains. To me, it would have to be truly special, truly special. Now, maybe CJ Stroud, maybe they knew when he arrived in Houston, oh my God, this is him. This is the dude. Right. He would be an example because he transformed everything there. He was a transformational person, player, leader, the whole thing on and off the field. So I don't love it, but I would leave the door open in the certain situation. And the more I think about it, what I'm going to ask of Brissett seemingly is not easy. It's going to be a difficult season for him potentially. He may have to watch a rookie struggle from the get-go and be like, why aren't I going in? I can do less poorly than that. Or he may lose his job in week 3, 5, 7.
Right.
So there is that sort of like toss him a bone. We appreciate you. We're making you a team captain. Doesn't mean you're starting in week 1. Doesn't mean you're starting in week 5 or 8. But we're telling you what level we put you on within this roster. Like we put you on a certain pedestal. So yeah, maybe I changed my vote from Onwenu to Brissett. Maybe I just voted Brissett. I think I just talked myself into Brissett being a captain.
All right, sounds good. So my offensive captains then are David Andrews, Hunter Henry, and Kendrick Bourne, and Andy's are the two Andrews and Henry, and he's going with Jacoby Brissett. And I can't say I disagree with making Brissett a captain. I just think that I like where Kendrick Bourne's head is at this offseason. So let's move on to the defense, Andy, because the defense has currently Dietrich Wise Jr. and Juwan Bentley as captains. They haven't lost any, but those were the only two defensive captains last season. In our exercise here, we're probably going to name a third and then go with one special teamer. So, Andy, I'll shoot to you first. Who earns, or actually are you stripping the captaincy away from anyone? Who are your 3 defensive captains for the Patriots?
So I know everybody thinks I'm an a-hole and a hardo and all that. I am not stripping the captaincy of those two guys because I don't see a reason to strip it. If you give me a reason to, and I would, it's only March, a reason could pop up. Like maybe Dietrich Wise is not getting reps in camp and starts being an a-hole. Okay, I'll strip you of your captaincy. If you want to be an a-hole and you stuff could pop up between now and then, but the information I currently have, I would stick
Lawrence
with them.
Guy had his captaincy stripped from him. Just thought of that.
Yeah, because he was bitching about his contract, right?
He wasn't a captain this year. Yep.
Right. But new regime. I don't know that the same old school.
No, I know. I'm just saying we were trying to think of people earlier, and that just popped up when we were talking about the defense.
So I'm going to keep Bentley and Wise, and that gives me one spot to add. I also liked Bentley going off on the hip drop tackle rules and all that in recent days. So he even went up a couple notches in my book. And then my other captain, there's trying to think. There's a couple candidates. Actually, there's more candidates than you would probably think. Like, I'll throw guys out there. I
just thought of a fourth candidate that I had. So go ahead.
So to me, Jelani Tavai is a candidate captain. I don't think he would get, if I only have 3 votes, I don't think he would get my 3, but he's a candidate to be a captain. I think both safeties in terms of Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, especially Duggar, this is weird where we start to blend in contracts. If he signs a long-term contract extension, I think he's going to be a captain. If he doesn't, if he plays out on the tender, then I think Jabril Peppers will be a captain. I am going to pick also, after 3.5 games, it's a little early, but if Christian Gonzalez is thought of internally the way he is thought of externally, he should be a candidate for captain. And I would roll Jonathan Jones in there just for who he's been for a long period of time.
Was Stephon Gilmore ever a captain here? I don't think so. And I put guys like Kyle Duggar and Christian Gonzalez into that type of defensive back where they're silent assassins and they don't talk and they don't chit chat and they don't, talk crap. And now that's on the field and that's sort of the bad side of it. But they also don't seem like guys who really speak up internally. Again, we don't really know what goes on behind closed doors.
They're not a-holes. We talked about it earlier. You got to be able to be an a-hole.
And I wonder if Christian Gonzalez has that side of him, especially again as a second-year guy who's coming in and having played just 3.5 games.
Yeah, and that'll be an evolution of. You're right. It's probably too soon because I agree with you. I don't think he has that necessarily that attitude, character, whatever. He may end up a captain because he's as good as people think he's going to be, and by year 4, you're like, well, he's the best cornerback in football. He's the best player on our defense. He's a captain, whatever. So under the Duggar Peppers comparison for me, I mean, I guess there's others. You could probably talk yourself into Anthony Jennings and Josh Uche and Christian Barmore.
You haven't mentioned someone yet. You haven't mentioned Matthew Judon.
Yeah, I don't. At this point, I think that ship has sailed in a weird way.
Okay. Interesting.
I think contract and age and hell, Gresham Fourier want to trade him and get something for him. And I don't think he's an impossibility. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I do think he checks a lot of boxes for a captain, but it just feels like that ship has passed him by a little bit. And I just like Jabril Peppers. I'm just going to say it. I like Jabril Peppers. Okay. He's another guy that's been bitching about the hip drop tackle and the wussification of football. And obviously with him, the way he plays, I mean, he's a throwback. He's trying to knock people's heads off. But I think last year there were times, not only was he your best player at times on defense, he kind of called out the BS and the flack and like those various comments. Like he always stuck up for Bill Belichick. Yeah. Like, I think he's a we guy. I think he just like, if you're in this uniform, we're a brother. I'll fight to the finish for you, whether I necessarily agree with it or not. Like he's the kind of guy, not just because he's jacked, but I want to go to a bar with if there's going to be a fight, or an alley with if like Vince Young could have used somebody like him watching his back the other night when he got knocked the F out on TMZ. Do you remember when he was mic'd up against the Giants and he told Saquon, "You're lucky we suck," or "You're lucky we ass," or something? When he spoke about that in the locker room, it was the most I've ever seen someone be accountable for their actions, like ever. He spoke for like 2.5, 3 minutes. It was like, "I apologize. There's no space for that. Even though it was a joke, I shouldn't have said it. I need to be smarter. There's these mic'd up things that, that shouldn't have got out." But like, and he was, and again, he didn't just duck it. He didn't just say, it shouldn't have got out and blah. Like, he was accountable. He was sorry. He felt bad for his teammates. And because of that, he wasn't disciplined for it when some people thought he should have been, because it was like, okay, you know what? I messed up. And I thought that was, that's a good display of someone being a leader as well when you take accountability like that. Absolutely. It's totally different world. But the other night when the Celtics blew the 30-point lead and Jason Tatum post-game said, "We effed it up," or "We effed up." Right. Like, to me, when somebody says that, we're kind of done here. I can't, like, you effed up. We saw you F up. You're not making excuses. So I have no further questions. You effed up. We move on. Like, we put it in our back pocket. And I think that's what leaders do. Like, they take it on. Like, I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to cover it up. I effed up. We effed up, whatever the phrasing is. And Peppers definitely has that. So Peppers would get my third vote. Also, it balances out my captaincy of Dietrich Wise. First level, second level is Juwan Bentley, third level is Peppers.
Okay. I think I'm going to go with Jonathan Jones. Jonathan Jones is my third guy, and he's a guy who has been around for a long time here. He was undrafted. He worked his way up as a special teamer, has turned himself into, right now, their second best cornerback. He takes on the boundary side opposite Christian Gonzalez and opposite whoever it was last year, and he plays just fine. He plays well. People respect him in the locker room. He speaks up. He talks. And I think, again, I like the way that he's moved up in the organization in the depth chart. And again, turned himself into an everyday player. And I don't think he's quiet like most other cornerbacks are. He also doesn't talk a lot of shit like most other cornerbacks do. He's just sort of a good pro, just a good guy. And you still can't complain about that because you still used potty mouth words just like I did.
Well, it's now 2-1. You used a-hole and other bad words.
That's
fair. Used TV allowed words. And I would add in for Jonathan Jones, which I have no problem with. I love where he came from to what he has become and what he is. So I think there's a unique path there that can be valuable as he is leading young players and mentoring and doing those things. If you talk to Steve Belichick and some of those guys, they always list him as one of the most underrated players on the team in football, maybe. So I think he has that aspect. And just to be honest with you, like we talked about on defense, I feel like there's at least a half dozen or more captain quality, which, by the way, fits in with this is a defensive team whose the defense is its best unit, the blah, 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 like consistency, stability, that whole thing. DJ Daniel says, I go Judon Peppers Duggar. Judon, somebody else said Judon 100% lock or something. We'll see. I mean, I certainly think he's in the mix.
I put him in the mix as well. So that's our defense. What were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say now we have to do special teams where I think it's a little bit more like the offense because Matthew Slater was, he was the Cal Ripken American League shortstop for 30 years. Your special teams captain is Matthew Slater. I don't know. I mean, the obvious, the groomed person is Schooler.
Brendan Schooler. Yep.
Except there was a lot of like, what the hell is Schooler doing late last year with penalties and leadership? And remember, he was like arguing back on the sideline a little bit after one of the penalties.
Yeah.
And
remember when he handed Belichick the football in like week 2?
He's come a long way since then. And I'm assuming it's good. But he's definitely was a human penalty for the last month of the season. And so we row 5-0 says Brendan Schooler. And I think that is the fallback, or that's like the obvious. But do you think that is so now DJ Daniel says I cannot stand Schooler.
Yeah, right.
And that is what I thought. I thought there would be a little pushback. Cardona.
That's a good one.
Is a long tenured guy. A guy I would just throw out there. I don't know if this kind of guy gets this kind of recognition. Marcus Jones seems like a pretty stand-up dude to me. Your punt returner, whatever he's going to roles he's going to have. Trying to think of others.
Like Chris Board's gone. He was a core special teamer who was just not going to be around. And
Cody Davis, he's gone.
Cody Davis is still on the team.
Really?
For now, yeah.
I would have cut him 3 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting one, and he makes you mad.
No, he makes money.
Oh, yeah.
Never felt like, I need to have.
Yeah. No, I guess you go with Schooler if you have to pick one, but I also like the idea of Joe Cardona too because he's been around forever. He's a leader. He's
what about rotating? Now, I don't even know if you're allowed. So we'll just bang out our 6, 3 on offense, 3 on defense, and have like a rotating special teams captain who we send out week to week for the kickoff. He doesn't have
but then who's the leader in the special teams room? Like when it's all said and done.
I don't know right now.
If it's Schooler, then why don't you just give him the C?
Because I'm not sure he's worthy. He's certainly no Matthew Slater, and I may be holding that against
Nobody's
him.
A Matthew Slater,
and that's true. If the person, let's just say he was replacing. Okay, I'll give it to Schooler because let's just say he was replacing Goodwin, Fitzy, Cardona. I don't even know what that means.
Not Fitzy.
Neither of us are Fitzy.
No.
If Chris Board had been the special teams captain last year, I think I'd be willing to make Brendan Schooler the special teams captain this year. So the fact that he doesn't measure up to maybe a Hall of Fame special teamer and Hall of Fame leader and Hall of Fame man and preacher and everything that was Matthew Slater isn't fair, probably, of a comparison. So, yeah, I'll give it to Schooler. I don't love it, but I'll give it to him.
I think so, too. I think that's it. And I think that's going to put a bow on our Captains podcast here on the Six.
Who's the captain of WEEI.com and the Six Rings podcast?
Oh, man. We all get the C, all three of us. No, you guys have the C's. I'll look up to you for now.
We're all C's. We're all C's in our own way.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
However
so that's
you fill that word in is up to you.
So my captains, David Andrews, Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, Dietrich Wise, Jawan Bentley, and Jonathan Jones, with a little Brendan Schooler mixed in. And Andy goes with Hunter Henry, David Andrews, Jacoby Brissett, Dietrich Wise, Jawan Bentley, Jabril Peppers. And Brendan Schooler. So those are our captains. We'll be back sooner rather than later here on the Six Rings podcast. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Six Rings podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are powered by FanDuel. Make every moment more at FanDuel. You can follow along on Twitter and Instagram at Six Rings Pod, and follow him at Jumbo Hart, and follow me at Mike Kadlick. We'll be back next week for a one-off Wednesday and plenty more here on Six Rings later in the week as well. And you're pointing to the chat. Drake May over Bourne Blessed for captains.
Yep. I'm leaving the door open like we're row 5-0 for Drake May to be one of my captains.
I am too. And right now, actually, as we close out this podcast, you can head over and check out the LSU Pro Day. Jaden Daniels, a huge Patriots brass down in Baton Rouge. Andy already thinks that Jaden Daniels stinks. We are on Team Drake May here so far on the Six Rings Football Things podcast. That's going to do it. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching, and we will see y'all next time.